If you want more impact as a game dev leader, more work isn't always the answer. You need to start thinking. Because when your calendar is a Tetris monster of back-to-back meetings, you're busy, but your awareness and understanding are in shambles, and that limits your ability to lead. I've watched senior leaders grind 10, even 12-hour days and still miss the most important questions, like, are we building the right thing? What's the biggest risk we face? What's slowing us down? Instead, they end up creating misalignment, waste, and avoidable pain for everyone. So in this episode, I'm going to show you 3 ways to build real thinking into your week, plus 7 questions that snap you out of Autopilot, and a 60-minute challenge you can do immediately to change what you prioritize now. Let's get into it. There's a common pattern I've seen in game dev. The most senior leaders of an organization often end up in endless numbers of meetings every single week, back to back to back to back. These are incredibly hardworking people most of the time. Not all, but most, in my experience, are working 8, 10, even 12-hour days, sometimes more, often doing weekends. They put a lot of effort in. They spend a lot of time talking to other people, and as I said, their calendars are a mess, an absolute Tetris monster. But oftentimes, their effectiveness isn't where it should be. Despite their busyness, despite all the meetings that they're going to and the people that they talk with, they're struggling. And one of the reasons I think that's true, there is no time for them to stop and think. It's not that they never think, but they think in scraps. They think on the weekend, they think when they're in the shower, they think late at night, places and times when they don't have anything to capture their thoughts. It's not particularly structured. And so that thinking, just like the times that they think, is fragmented. It doesn't come together nicely. What it means is that when they actually have to make decisions, it's often very reactive. I'm going to switch tracks for a second. There was an engineer I knew of once, and every day, pretty much, they would take a walk for some amount of time, half an hour, 2 hours in the afternoon. They were a senior engineer, very good at what they did. They'd come back, and then they'd get a lot done in a fairly short amount of time. Now, if I was an inexperienced manager or leader, I might go, well, hang on, you're so good at doing work, why do you take that break? Just work through the whole thing. This assumes that when they go for that walk, they're not actually doing the most important part of their job, and I think they are. What they're doing when they go on that walk is the deep thinking, is the understanding, the architecture, how things are going to fit together, what the code is going to do, how the feature will work, how the system will function. All this stuff, they've created a space for themselves to think, and that thinking is what allows them to succeed in their job. Unfortunately, too often we treat time spent thinking as a luxury, as if it's a mistake, as if it's something to be pushed out of the calendar or booked over. We don't want to give people that time to think. But I can tell you, there's a lot of people out there who could do a lot better if they spent some amount of time every day, every week, even every month going, what in the world is the most important thing I could be doing? In its absence, we just go through the day. You remember those senior leaders in game dev who are just constantly in back-to-back-to-back meetings? I was in an org like that. All the senior leaders were always in meetings. And when big problems came up, what they told the org, you need to execute, you need to deliver, you need to work, get everything done, do all the stuff we know we need to do. They were trying to deliver their way out of what I consider a thinking problem. But they had no time to think because, again, they were super busy. And this was an organization that had hundreds of people. It took a very, very long time for it to get something done. Lots of money invested. In my opinion, the hardest questions, the most important questions they could have been asking, they ignored. Things like, are we building the right thing? What's missing? What's changing? These things were not stuff that was discussed on a regular basis. And as a result, there was a lot of misalignment. There was a lot of waste, a lot of avoidable pain for that entire org. So let's talk about what's actually going on in your brain and why I think this actually gets harder the more senior you get, but it also gets more important to spend time in thinking. In the book Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman breaks out 2 different modes of how humans engage with problems and basically how their brain approaches the world in any given moment. And there's slow thinking and there's fast thinking, hence the book, Thinking Fast and Slow. Fast thinking are our instincts. They're the habits. There's the pattern matching that we do every day, the things we know how to do. It's why you can hop into a car and drive to work or drive somewhere you know and not really have to think about it. You don't have to do anything. It's sort of all is automatic. You may not even remember the journey. And this is very efficient. It saves energy. And that's something that our brain really likes to do. That's something our body likes to do because we want to conserve our energy as human beings, as Homo sapiens. We want to have excess energy and not spend it where we don't need to. So our brain is constantly trying to get us into these patterns and habits and instinctual ways of operating. And that can be really valuable. If we didn't do this, we wouldn't be able to function in the world. There's a second type of thinking, slow thinking. And it's deliberate, it's effortful. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable and anxiety-inducing even. It's where you question assumptions. It's where you see what's changing. It's where you puzzle over something that you don't have a solution for, that there is no pattern, there is no habit. Your instincts aren't developed or don't know what to do. It's where you solve the hairy problems of life, but it's expensive. It takes a lot of calories, and your brain doesn't like to be there. And in fact, what your brain is constantly doing is trying to figure out, how can I take things that are in the slow thinking space and over time get them to be fast thinking things that I just know how to do intuitively. This is something we do when we learn things. First time you learn an instrument or play a sport or whatever, you have to think a lot about what's going on. As you do it more and more and more, it all becomes intuitive. This can happen in game dev as well. But game dev is a place where fast thinking can cause you a lot of trouble down the road. Game dev as an environment is changing constantly. The game is evolving and we're figuring out what's working and what's not about it. The players are evolving in terms of what they like and their interests. The competitors evolve, the team dynamics involved, the company or studio is evolving. Everything's changing. The whole environment is changing. And what that can mean is that the pattern that you had, the way that you figured out how to operate within your context in order to be successful, well, if that was working 6 months ago, it might not work today. Heck, sometimes if it was working 2 weeks ago, it might not work today if things have changed. But if you stay in fast thinking mode, you're going to get a lot of going through the motions. You're going to do your rituals, your meetings, your reports, whatever cycles or iterations are going on. Everybody's going to stay busy because there's always going to be stuff we're going to be wanting to do. There's always more work. We're going to be reacting and, oh, that came up. Let's just send people at it. Let's send people at that. We're not going to be pausing to consider. What this can lead to is decisions avoided. We're going to ignore risks. We're going to ignore cultural issues. We're going to ignore serious gameplay problems. Now, a lot of it comes down to the fact that it's easier just to keep going through the motions of the day and the week and the month than it is to pause, shift into slow thinking, and try to understand what's going on. If we did go into that slow thinking mode, we might just be forced to admit we aren't doing the right things and we don't know what to change right now to make things better. But that is also your connection to reality. It can help tell you what's not working, the decisions that do need to get made, that we're all just moving around and shipping things that don't matter that much, not actually making progress towards our goal of creating an experience players would love. If you don't do this, you're likely to stay very busy, again, back-to-back-to-back meetings, but probably not making the progress you could be and wasting a lot of time. Does this sound familiar? You're in a leadership role at a game studio. Everyone is busy working, no one has any time, but the actual game itself isn't in a good spot. Maybe it's the tech. Maybe it's the lack of a validated prototype. Maybe it's that every person seems to have a different idea about what we're trying to build. But you've got a job. There are reports to send, meetings to schedule and facilitate, the occasional season of performance reviews to go through. And everyone is always so busy. When you step back, it makes you wonder if everyone is just going to keep slowly walking towards the abyss until the project or game fails. Is this what it means to be a leader in games? In tech? To endlessly repeat the same sequence of meetings without really moving the needle? To spend hours trying to get Jira tickets and dashboards where they should be? To pretend that everything is fine when you know deep down it really isn't? It doesn't have to be this way. You can make a difference. You can help your team and game succeed, but sometimes you need a bit of help to get there. I've started a game dev leadership accelerator. It aims to level up leaders who see opportunities to make a difference but don't know how to capitalize on them. We'll walk through what it means to lead well and give you tools to understand your organization's challenges and implement changes to overcome them. Game dev is hard. Knowing how to lead will give you an edge. It will still be hard, but you'll be ready to tackle it. If you're interested, let me know below, hit the link. I hope to see you in the accelerator because I believe better leaders will help teams make better games, and I look forward to someday playing what you create. This is especially true for leaders. While everybody in every discipline benefits from thinking about the work they need to do, how it ladders up into whatever else is going on, leaders especially have a responsibility to maintain the big picture, to keep the vision in mind. You have to be understanding what are the priorities, what are the risks, what are the trade-offs we're making, how is the team functioning, and what are its dynamics, how do I improve it, how do I create alignment towards the things that are most important, and what does success actually mean today, that might be different from what it was 6 months ago. And the more senior you get, the more your job should have thinking in it. The more you need to spend cycles actually understanding what it is we're trying to solve and how I can get all these people moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, also as you get more senior, the calendar becomes more and more and more of a pressure. And this valuable thinking that you need to do that's so easy to dismiss as useless or unnecessary, or why aren't you just doing work? That all gets pushed to the side. We shove that to the side. We have more meetings, more moment-to-moment conversations, and we develop more patterns, not just for ourselves, but for our organizations. I want to give you 3 ways that I think you can get some of that slow thinking back into you as a leader as you're trying to improve your game. First, a solo thinking block. This is just some protected time you create. This won't work for everybody, but for a lot of people, you find time during your workday, you block it off, take a half hour a week, an hour a week, a half hour a month. I don't care. Find some time when you're not totally fried and actually have that be a time to stop and ponder the big questions that you have around what you're doing. And we're going to go into those big questions in a minute. But this is one thing I've seen people do that has been effective. It's just time set apart to think about and try to understand what's going on, to grapple with the reality of your situation, the team, the product, the game, whatever it is, and hopefully come out of that with a clearer picture of what actually matters instead of just continuing to do the things that you've been doing. Again, doesn't need to be daily. I would recommend starting this either weekly or bi-weekly. You do like an hour every 2 weeks or half an hour a week and see how that goes. See what you can get out of it. Some people might need a bigger block in order to have an effective session of thinking, and others might be able to do a lot in 15, 20 minutes. Whoever you are, however you work, figure that out over time. But yeah, drop an hour somewhere, see what you can do. The second is a more question-driven approach. Some people, and I'm one of them, have trouble when I put blocks on my calendar. For some reason, I just don't value blocks that other people aren't involved in, and so if I block time on my calendar to do something, it's easy for me just to ignore it or book over it. I kind of ignore it. But what I've found can be helpful is take a list of questions that I think are important, put them somewhere on like a to-do list, and then have something, an app or some program somewhere that'll tell me, warn me, say, hey, have you looked at these questions in the last 2 weeks, last month, whatever it is. And then if I haven't, I go like, shoot, I need to make sure I make some time for that. And I'm going to spend some time thinking about this. It's, again, not necessarily a block of time, but more these questions that I should constantly be looking at. They should be popping up somehow through to-do lists or some other system that I have, ticketing systems, whatever you want to use. Some way to get these questions in front of your face more often so that you are forced to contend with them. And when you do, hopefully you're going to actually spend some time going like, that's actually a really good question. I should figure that out because I don't have a good answer right now. Sometimes you will have a good answer, and that's great, but often you won't. And that's even better in some ways because that means you get to go spend some time figuring that out. And it could be the most valuable thing you do all week. Thinking is hard when it's vague, so the prompts can help make it real. Again, I'm going to cover some questions that I think you could put in this list. And then the third one, collective thinking. This can help with alignment, create a little bit of accountability or shared responsibility of what's going on. Imagine that you get together with another leader or perhaps a group, like a group of team leads or a group of senior game leads or something like that. Having a no agenda meeting where you talk about what you consider the risks, the challenges. I guess in some ways there's this light agenda, but you don't have any particular outcome that needs to come out of this. What you do is you create it as a space for us to talk about what we see as the big opportunities and the big challenges for this whole project being successful or this team being successful. Grab a group of people, have them spend time talking to each other. You might reveal some really interesting things that everybody's not really had space to talk about or think about. Maybe they've thrown it in a Slack channel here or there, but none of the other meetings seem to match it. And so we've been going on and on and on, and people are actually like, I think we need to figure out this problem, but I don't know how to do it alone. And it never seems like the right time to bring it up because everybody's always so busy. If you do this often enough, you can often catch problems early, stopping them before they become the fires that everybody's going to spend all their time being busy solving down the road. Okay, so I just listed out 3 different ways. There's a solo thinking block, there's the question-driven thinking, and then there's the collective thinking. What are some questions that might come up here? I'm going to give you 7. I'm going to walk you through these. These are ones that I think people should be asking more and are not. First, what problems are we not talking about? Simple question, but man, can really reveal some amazing things about an organization. 2, what risks do we need to figure out? Sounds a little similar to the first, just slightly different framing on it. looks at it as a risk, not a problem, helps people look into the future and go, what might be the things that undo us versus what are the active things that are undoing us? Third, what opportunities are we ignoring? I like to look at the world through the lens of challenges and opportunities. Challenges are the things we know are going to give us trouble. Opportunities are the things that might accelerate us or make things more successful. A lot of times opportunities get lost, and I think it's easy for us not to realize we do have amazing opportunities in front of us. We can't always do all of them. That's why we prioritize. But asking the question, what opportunities are we ignoring, can help us realize, oh shoot, there's actually something we could do here that could help a ton. We just aren't thinking about it because it's not a challenge or a problem, and it's not part of our routine. Fourth, where have we gotten comfortable and stagnant? What are the systems, the processes, the teams, the products, the parts of the game where we're just kind of fading away, where things are sort of functional? It's not so bad that it's raising huge flags, but it's really not working, or it's not really adding value. It's not what we should be doing, and we kind of know that. But it's comfortable, it's known, and everybody's sort of going through the motions. Where are those things? Number 5, what decisions do we need to make, and why aren't we making them? This one's very interesting. This touches in on curiosity, it touches in on connection to reality, but this idea of what decisions do we need to make and why aren't we making them can push at some of the cultural issues you see inside of organizations, as well as help us identify, shoot, we're behind on some things that we need to be communicating to the team because we have made this call implicitly, or we should make it explicitly, and we need to do that so we can move in the right direction, and everybody's kind of waiting on that decision. Number 6, what would better actually look like for this team or this game in 90 days? Again, pushes against the status quo. What would it look like if we were wildly successful over the next 3 months at this team getting better, at this game getting better? Do we have a view of that? Or are we all just going to continue to run our process and build stuff and hope it gets better? If you can understand what that goal is, you can have a better shot of moving towards it. But it may reveal some uncomfortable things, and that's what all of this is actually intended to do, is get you thinking and connecting to reality. And then finally, 7, what do players actually think, and how do we know? You're building a game. Maybe you're working on part of a game. Maybe you're working on the back end for a game. Maybe you have a different audience. Whatever it is. I just use the word players here. Fill in whatever it is, customer, audience, whatever. What do they actually think? And how do you know that? These are questions that should have answers. And if they don't, you should figure out how to get those answers. Because if you don't know what your players are thinking, you don't know what they think of the product, you don't know what they think of what you think will please them, then you're flying a little bit blind, you're making a bunch of assumptions. And that's okay, we have to do that at times, but we don't want to do that forever. That's a great way to build something nobody cares about. I'm going to challenge you to do one thing this week. Book a 60-minute block somewhere. And I want you to bring the 7 questions. The rules of this 60-minute block. You can do this by yourself. No looking at email, no looking at Slack. Don't bring some fancy deck to this. This isn't about getting any work done or doing anything. This is about you connecting and understanding your own situation and then choosing what you want to respond. What I want you to take away from this, 3 things. First, what's the number one risk that you feel like you've been avoiding dealing with for whatever it is you're trying to do? Number 2, what's the number one decision that needs to be made that hasn't been made? Maybe it's a decision you need to make. Maybe it's a decision someone else needs to make, but that you need to give that push. Whatever it is there a decision that should be made? And then number 3, what's the number one priority that you're going to change within the next 7 days? What's something that is being worked on that isn't that important, be it around the team, the product, whatever it is? What's something you're going to shift in the next 7 days to make things meaningfully better? Again, talked about the 7 questions. Let me just recap them real quick. Number 1, what problems are we not talking about? Number 2, what risks do we need to figure out? Number 3, what opportunities are we ignoring? Number 4, where have we gotten comfortable and stagnant? Number 5, what decisions do we need to make and why aren't we making them? Number 6, what would better actually look like for this team or game in the next 90 days? And number 7, what do players or customers or your audience actually think and how do we know? Bonus part of this challenge for you, book a 30-minute meeting after you've done this and you have your risk, your decision, your priority change or shift that you're going to make. Talk with somebody else, a peer leader, someone on the team who understands the big picture, a group of leaders, whatever it is, and run this by them in a very open-ended way. See what they think. See if they agree with you. See if they think what you've discovered is good or valuable or not. Key thing here, you often don't become a better leader by doing more, being in more meetings, being involved with more reports or looking at more information. Instead, you become a more impactful leader by dedicating the time you need to thinking about what matters, then acting when you realize what that is. I'm not saying spend 40 hours a week thinking, but I am saying most of the time the people I see leading game dev are spending way, way, way too little. And if they could get it up to an hour or two a week, it would help everyone out a ton. So if your calendar is full, your leadership is probably suffering. Make thinking a priority. It'll go a long way. All right, thanks for listening. Subscribe if you like this episode. Cheers.